It's so nice to see you again virtually on Music and Chat, and it's a good morning to you from Nashville. That's where I am right now. I'm in a new place, as you can see. I broadcast from this new humble abode last week, and I had to piggyback off the data plan of my phone, or AKA hotspot, because we had a power outage and I did not have internet access. But all looks good today. So please, if you are watching, say hi in the live chat and let us know where you're tuning in from, and don't be backward in coming forward. And if you have any questions, please put these in the same live stream and I shall attend to them as the stream moves along. All of you know that I have several CDs that I have released, and I have my reflection set. That's 4 CDs and a signed poster. If you haven't bought them yet, please scan the QR code and be a proud owner of Shueh-li's music. If you have particular requests, such as signing the CDs or the poster, or you live outside US and you would like an overseas shipment, please put these requests in a post below this video. Thank you. So today I'm gonna play Verity for you. That's from my first album, Shueh-li's Xenovibes. It's one of my favorite pieces, so I shall turn on the continuity camera so that you can see. So that was Verity from my first album, Shueh-li Xenovibes. If you haven't got it yet, please go get it. If you need the QR code again, please scan this one. This is a QR code for the Reflection set. That's my 4 CDs and a signed poster. If you miss it, you can always rewind this video that's on archive and scan it. Put it on pause and scan away. All right, so here's my introduction to our next guest, Daniel. Listen, Keller was our guest in season 2 of Music and Chat. This was in 2020. Amazing how time flies. We have him back to find out more about how the music industry is doing and if there were any changes brought on by the pandemic. Right after this live stream, we have a game of yay or okay. Those of you who have seen yay or okay already will know how that goes. But Daniel, our guest today, shall be joining our guest from last week, Jim Heckrath, to play yay or okay, and it's all fun. So please join us right after this live stream. There will be a new live stream placeholder that pops up on my channel to show you whereabouts to get to yay or okay, or just simply search through my YouTube channel homepage and you will find it. It's yay or okay. It's as simple as that. All right, so we're ready to bring in Daniel Keller, but before we do, I want to say hi to our ambassador of Music and Chat, Gary Mayulo from Friedrich, Maryland, my other good friend who's been on Music and Chat, Mike Brandt, who's tuning in from Eugene, Oregon, and someone I have not met before, unless I have and I've forgotten, HK. HK, please tell us where you're tuning in from, and thanks so much for joining us. So let's check in with Daniel. Daniel, please come in. Hey, Daniel, you're live.
Good morning, Shueh-li. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And you?
Oh, you got me up pretty early, but I'll do my best to string coherent thoughts together.
I'm sure you'll do just fine. Daniel, thanks for joining us again. And let's start with something about NAMM. I know you kind of breezed in and out and you were mainly there for your own business, but I'm sure you have a few things to say about it. But here's a little blurb about this year's NAMM. According to the trade show executive, yes, I tried to do my research, over 1,200 exhibitors representing roughly 3,500 brands, 46,000 attendees, over from 120 countries and regions, countries and territories, walked through the doors of the Anaheim Convention Center during this year's NAMM.
Sounds like it was written by a PR person.
Sorry?
Sounds like it was written by a PR person.
Yes, it was. From the trade show executive.
Absolutely. The attendance was actually pretty good, I would say, considering it was an off time of year. One of the challenges that NAMM faced this year, I would say, and this is, of course, all armchair quarterback and everything,
Of course.
But I think one of the challenges that they faced was that the show being in April this year, in the first year where a lot of people were able to finally get back on tour, meant that they really lost out on opportunities to have the live sound community there, which is important. It's an important sector of our industry, and
that's true.
Even bigger now. So, having it in January, well, there's a lot of people who are not necessarily touring in January. Having it in April is right at the beginning of touring season for most of North America. And so I know that there were a lot of live sound companies who just could not engage.
Well, I did have some questions for you about that sector, but before I get to it, I shall ask you about what you noticed when you first walked through the doors. Were you surprised? Were you happy to be back? Did anything jump out at you? in any way, either in a positive way or a not so savory manner?
No, not at all. I mean, okay, this was my 30th NAM show, 30th winter NAM show. So I've seen it through a lot of changes. Um, it's a little bit different, but the same every
Mm,
year. There is NAM is now going through a lot of transitioning itself because so has the entire music industry, so has the entire technology sector, and so has the entire retail sector.
mm-hmm.
So ultimately, trade shows are evolving into events. And that showed at NAMM this year. They had a celebration of 40 years of MIDI and 50 years of hip hop. And, they were more event focused. And I think that's the direction they're heading. At least I would hope so for the sake of the whole industry. That's what we need right now.
Mm.
And I think they understand that. And so there was a lot more event content. There was a lot more educational content, a lot more seminars and things like that. And I
Mm.
think that's the direction that we are evolving as a music community. So,
Interesting.
yeah. So it makes sense. And I think NAM did that. I mean, my team was there really, we were almost constantly shooting panels and interviews at the media center, and
Mm-hmm.
that's content that's online. And you know I think that's the kind of thing that the NAM show is a great forum for. The ability for people to really come together and say, oh, these people are giving a talk on that, or this
Mm.
this band is performing, this artist is over here. That's that's what these events are the best at, because it's about our community.
So, speaking of panels, this year's NAM, the theme for this year's NAM was bringing the future into focus, and you moderated several panels for your talk show Insights in Sound, which you mentioned earlier on. Listeners out there, viewers out there, you can find this online, Insights in Sound. Daniel, what were a few issues about the future raised by your guests worthy of mentioning?
That's such a big question.
This
um,
big or this big?
oh, even bigger. It's one of those vast things that you can't see the horizon of.
Yeah.
um, I come from the technology background. My background is as a musician, as a recording engineer and producer. So my early background is in recording studio and working with artists. And for me, from that perspective, the entire methodology, that's easy for me to say, the entire methodology of making music has changed so much. And in a way, we've now come full circle, because we started out with people doing things very simply, one microphone in a room with a bunch of people, and if you wanted somebody louder, they stepped forward. um,
Mm-hmm.
to multi-track recording, to now endless tracks and the ability to undo and redo and chop things up. And that's an art form in itself too.
Hmm.
But I think there's also now there's a lot of going back to artists finding their own voice and everything, which is, it's a great thing to see. And I know a lot of producers, and one of the things that we were talking about at the show, we had a great conversation with Frank Filippetti and Michael Beinhorn about the state of post major label world, where
Yeah.
so many artists are now really, the holy grail for so long was to get a label deal, and now it's almost the antithesis of what everybody wants.
Yeah.
So there is now a different path for artists in terms of developing themselves. Artist development. You can find now people to work with who can help you to develop your own voice, and you don't have to sound like everybody else. So I think there's a paradigm shift going on there, and I think that portends well for the future.
Hmm.
Makes me happy.
Well, I'm so glad. So am I. I think most of us are. Most of us are also curious if much of that was brought on by being locked behind doors, thanks to the pandemic in the last few years.
It's interesting. I think the whole shutdown, um, it caused a lot of isolation, and it also, at the same time, brought a lot of us closer.
Mm,
I mean, for me, I think I reached deep into my own community
mm,
even more than I ever had before. I started doing my show during that era.
mm.
I started participating in my dear friend Karen Dunn holds uh, it was for a while weekly. Now we've all gotten back to work and it's only occasionally, but a group Zoom call. Other friends of mine in other parts of the community were holding group Zoom calls, and it was this craving that we all have for connectivity,
Mm,
where we couldn't go out, and so in certain ways we actually got closer through spending screen time together. And I think that has, at least in my world,
mm,
that has then permeated into my IRL, my in real life connections, where I find that I have built even more now on community than I have before. And this is part of creative culture. This is what we do as artists. For me, the idea that we can connect with other people is lifeblood. There's nothing more important. So to me, I think the music industry needs things like that. I think that's when you go back to NAMM as a trade show or an event, I vote for event, because that's really what we need more of in our community is that connectivity. So I'm not at all disappointed that COVID happened. I think
mm,
it was a reset
mm.
for a lot of us.
Might there have been other stories of survival that were shared with you?
Oh yeah. I mean, stories of survival. Everyone has been So many people that I know have been reinventing themselves
Yeah.
over this period of time. And, it's interesting because I've always said that I've been through probably a dozen careers in my own life. And so many people I know have been going through a reset, you
Mm,
know, deciding that, well, what I've been doing all these years, or, well, either deciding for themselves to make changes or having it decided for them.
mm,
So many mergers and acquisitions and consolidations in our industry, and a lot of people have moved into different things.
mm,
Especially again going back to the live sound community.
mm.
When the shutdown hit, we started a Facebook page for music industry people to network with each other, so that
Ah,
a set builder who's out of work could maybe find a gig building a deck for someone or something like that, and just to interconnect people, because especially in the live sound industry, there were so many people out of work.
mm,
And I don't know if anybody remembers. It seems like forever ago, but beginning of 2020, the shutdown happened in February, March of 2020, and that was exactly the time when all of these people were just getting ready to go to work for the season.
mm.
So there was a lot of pain there for a lot of people, and lots of people I know reinvented themselves. I heard about one couple who started a bakery,
Wow.
called it Sound Bites, which was
Mm,
brilliant.
yeah.
I think a lot of people had to reevaluate and rethink what they did and or do, and a lot of people have come out of it stronger. I think most of us have. At least I hope so.
Do you think, on hindsight, it might be worthwhile having another trick in the bag for just in case? Always?
Oh, I always recommend that. I mean, I consider everything that we do an extension of everything we've done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that sounds really, hardcore philosophical pontification, but it's true. As we as we go through our careers, we learn new skills. We incorporate those skills into older skills.
Yeah.
Um, I have I call myself a lead actor in short attention span theater. I have always been just drawn to the next thing and the next thing, and not because I'm dissatisfied, but because I think for myself, I'm just constantly wanting to try new things and grow and develop as a human.
Yeah.
And so to me, I think this COVID has been a challenge for all of us. It's certainly a challenge for me in a lot of ways. At the same time, it has changed what we do, and
Mm.
um, it has. It's funny. I read a quote from Frank Zappa this morning talking about how if I never know when the last day of my life is going to be, I don't want to spend any days listening to people whine and bitch about how shitty things are.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we have so much to be thankful for, and it's such a beautiful world, and it's such a great place to be in life. Yeah, I'm just not looking for negativity. That's all.
Yes, I second that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Daniel. Viewers, if you have questions for Daniel, please put them in the live chat. You know how it works, so I can bring them into the stream. And if you are watching but you're too shy to let us know you're watching, please do not be. Do not be backward and coming forward. Let us know where tuning in from and give us a name we can call you. Be it John, Mary, or some other ethnic name. We would like to know who you are so that we can make you feel welcomed. Daniel, speaking of COVID and the touring sector, I have noticed that this sector has returned, at least in US, with a vengeance. Do you think this is a temporary rush, or does this look like it's the how the health of this sector shall be maintained?
Um, well, some of this may be wishful thinking on my part,
Yeah.
but I actually believe that it portends the future of the industry, because if you think about it, uh, the recording industry itself has completely transformed, and now we're in a streaming world,
Yeah.
and there is not a lot of income to be made. I mean, there's income to be made from catalog. Older artists, they're getting paid, but newer artists coming in, it's no longer a way to really make money. I think what recording is at this point is a marketing tool.
Mm.
Musicians, artists now, for the most part, they are creating music to get people to come and see them live. And
Mm.
I think the live experience is what everybody wants.
Mm.
As much as we definitely enjoyed seeing concerts online,
Mm.
I think everybody wants to go to a show. Everybody wants to be among, again, we're social animals. We want to be
Mm.
around our peers and experience a live show together.
Mm.
So I think the live sound industry is really healthy. I think, I mean, obviously there are always going to be big corporations doing the big shows. You're not
Yeah.
going to, yeah, I mean, they have the infrastructure for that. But I think on a more local level, I think we're seeing more and more performances. And that's great, because as an artist, if you're doing it only online, you're kind of creating in a vacuum. There's a lot to be said for the reactions of an audience.
Mm.
It feeds your art, and it tells you what works and what doesn't.
True. Does this bode well for indie artists as well? The one man or two men, as in two person or one person type of act, with all the big acts touring. So, for example, in Nashville, you're seeing, a myriad of shows every day. How do you choose? Will
Well,
the small acts get left behind because?
oh, I don't think so. In fact, I actually, I'm sometimes surprised. Um, there are so many artists that people have never heard of, and yet a whole lot of people. It's that old Yogi Berra quote about, nobody goes there anymore, it's too crowded. Um, it's I am amazed sometimes to hear about concerts for these people that I've never heard of, some of them, but yet they can bring in 1,000 or 2,000 people to a show easily. And I think part of that is because there is no, if you go back a decade or 2 decades, you always had central like radio stations and things like that where people discovered new music. Now it's all over the place. And you might be on a Spotify playlist one week, but a week later you're gone. And so there's a lot of it's a lot more difficult now to find good music. It's a lot more people are a lot more siloed in their tastes and whatnot.
Mm.
But I think when an artist starts being discovered, it's it's much different now because word of mouth spreads differently over the internet. And you go to shows where you think, oh yeah, I just discovered this new artist, and you go and there's like a full house. It's like, wow, all these other people knew about you too. So I think it bodes really, really well for indie artists coming up, because these kind of shows, this kind of environment, I think is so much better for them. I mean, I think the future for live music is really, really healthy.
Do you think live streaming, performing online, could subsist with live touring? Or do you think the live streaming sector will slowly diminish as people get back to enjoying live music?
Oh no, I hope not. I think the two can coexist very nicely. I mean, there's nothing nicer. I mean, to me, the thing about live streaming, yeah, it's great that it's happening live and people can see it, but the cool thing about it is that it can then live on the internet,
Mm.
and I can go back and say, oh, I missed that. Cool. And I can discover stuff. I've discovered some really great musicians by just coming across a live stream that they did a month ago, a year ago even, and
Mm.
so I think there's a place for both of those. And the live streams that are up online are key to people, to what I was just talking about, like, oh, I didn't know anything about this band, and yet, I go to the show and it turns out everybody else thought they were the only ones who knew about this band too, and we're all here
Yeah,
and we're all experiencing this artist together.
I hear you.
Yeah,
I call it the YouTube rabbit hole. For me,
it is.
it's a
Yeah.
discovery process of new music.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a great thing. I think to me that's the new curation system, like it or not.
Daniel, in the light of the pandemic, what long term changes do you anticipate in this sector, the touring sector, to ensure the safety and well being of the artists and their audiences?
Ooh. I mean, I have to say, the people that I know in the live sound sector are total pros. And these are people who I think, man, I talk to some of these people, and let me preface this by saying I've toured as an artist, and I've gotten close with a lot of crew from being with them on a day-to-day basis. I've also worked as an artist relations person in Europe for many years, and saw a lot of crews come through, and I have always found these people to be highly attentive of the stuff that the average concert goer has no idea about, like rigging, like lighting, all of the technical infrastructure, all the safety procedures and everything. It's amazing what goes into a show that we have no idea of. And the the incredible amount of work these people do, they're the first in, they're the last out. They're working so hard, and I think I have seen so many precautions and so much good work being done by them. I'm not at all concerned for live sound safety in that sense. I think in terms of crowds coming together, um, I'm certainly not an epidemiologist. I have no idea whether or not there's going to be another COVID or anything like that.
Yeah,
I'm more worried about gun crazy nuts, quite honestly. You know, but it's the world we live in.
yeah.
People still want to get together. People still want to be at a show, including myself, and I don't think I don't think any of us want to hide in a closet.
Mm.
We want to be out there, and so I think live shows are gonna, as I said, I think they're gonna come back. Well, I think they already have come back. And of course, right now we're at the peak of summer touring season, and there's literally something you can see almost every day,
Mm.
no matter where you are. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a healthy industry right now, and I'm glad for that.
Wonderful. That's good news for me and for many of us.
Hmm.
So, despite the lockdown, many of us were able to continue work. Those of us were writing and recording thanks to our studios in a box, our home studios in a box. Um, I'm just curious, while you're at NAM, did you spot any new trends or technologies to complement our studios in a box? Anything worthy of mention?
Oh, I mean, there's a ton of great stuff right now. I mean, in terms of instruments, I have just been overwhelmed with the plethora of software synths,
Ah, okay.
and I mean, and shout out to my buddies at Cherry Audio who have done some amazing stuff. There's a ton of other companies out there doing great stuff. There's so much going on right now with the implementation of MIDI 2.0. There are
Yeah.
new instruments and new controllers coming out
Did you
constantly.
spot
That's
one that I we should look into? I've been waiting for something glorious and magnificent.
Oh, there's all sorts of stuff. I mean, I had actually been playing with Roger Lynn's Linstrument, which I know is
Oh,
not brand new by any means, but you know, being a being primarily a bassist myself, having something that is based on a grid but not based on a grid, I mean, it made me start the same way. If I sit down at a keyboard, I think differently. This again made me start thinking differently. And then there's this company called Artifon, which makes these really cool little MIDI alternative MIDI controllers as well. So
huh.
I'm a fan of alternative instruments like that. I've lately been enamored with them. Um, on the technology front, the thing that I think is cool is there are now services that you can literally jam online with people, streaming services and whatnot, and
Such
that's
as,
exciting to me. You know,
such as.
oh, what's the one that I'm thinking of? There's one that I have been that I mean there's Session Wire is the one that most of the
Mm,
people I know are using. There's another
mm-hmm.
one called Audio Movers. They're different, but they both enable you to have essentially a collaboration session with somebody anywhere in the world, and
Yeah, I
that's
tried
a fun thing.
audio movers with Dean Parks. We weren't quite satisfied with the way we were able to use it, but that's another story. So I might look in a session wire.
Session Wire seems to me to be, and I mean, I haven't spent enough time with either of them yet, but I've been promising myself that I really want to play with Session Wire, and I have actually I do mentoring through the Audio Engineering Society, and I have a mentee in South Africa. He and I have been talking about collaborating through Session Wire, and I'm really excited about trying stuff like that because I think, to me, um, I know so many great musicians, and none of them are wherever I am.
Yeah,
And now
tell
we
me
have the
about it.
ability. Yeah, we have the ability to do that. To phone in our parts from anywhere. So I do want to avail myself to that. I think that's the thing that I saw some of at NAM that made me really excited is the idea that we can now collaborate with anyone anywhere.
Thanks, Daniel. So, still sticking on with musical instrument merchants, designers, manufacturers, marketers. They've been able to thrive in an era where online marketplaces and direct to customer sales are the MO. In fact, during the pandemic, I heard stories and reports that there was an increase in the purchase of musical instruments because there were many who had time on their hands and who
Oh, yeah.
always wanted to learn how to play one of those. How did you gather news like that while you were walking the corridors of Nam?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think the prime beneficiaries of that burst were guitar manufacturers and keyboard manufacturers.
Ah,
I do believe that that has now peaked and is actually on the decline now. So there's a little bit of concern there because,
ah,
the thing is, music. Yes, there are those of us. I won't name any names or claim any responsibility here, but there are those of us who are gear acquisition addicts, and we always have to have something new. Not that you or I would know anyone like that, but um, for a lot of people, and especially those people you're talking about who have always wanted to and are just dabbling, they're not going to buy 12 guitars. They're going to buy a guitar. Once they've made that purchase, that's what they're going to have. And so, there's only so much gear you can sell to a hobbyist.
mm,
And, so from that perspective, I think most of those people who invested that, they invested it already. They're done.
mm,
They might upgrade one or two things, but they are not the primary customer of music retail. The primary customer, at least pro audio retail,
ah,
we're talking more serious people who, um, you know, people like myself who need to have multiple bass preamps,
mm,
and microphone collections, things like that, different devices. We're not in the same category as people who are buying a guitar.
mm,
So, and I think, there's a limited market for music technology,
mm,
and people are very, very selective about what they buy,
mm,
especially on the high end.
mm. Thanks, Daniel. So, low end or high end, there is still a big interest in software solutions. A lot of money is being put into software solutions. How do people in the hardware sector expect to compete with this ever growing interest slash investment?
You can't change the laws of physics. There are certain things that need to be hardware, and the companies that are investing in hardware, we're talking with a company right now who are integrating really great high end front front end stuff,
Yeah.
preamps and whatnot into computer interfaces. You need something to get it into the computer. You
Mm.
need a gazinta and you need a gazouta, as we like to say. And so those pieces always have to be hardware. As far as the software emulations are concerned, um, I have to think back to a conversation I had with my dear friend Ivana Manley. Uh, Her company Manley Labs makes these wonderful, amazing high-end tube preamps and compressors and whatnot.
Wow.
Really wonderful gear, but honestly, outside of the budget of a lot of people, I mean, as I
Yeah.
say, the average hobbyist is not going to spend $4,000 for a good preamp.
Yeah.
Somebody who takes it seriously and makes a living at it is absolutely going to spend that money.
Yeah.
But mere mortals are not.
Yeah.
And I asked Ivana because she held out for a long time to not have a software emulation,
Mm.
and then eventually she licensed one of her units to Universal Audio, I believe it was. And
Ah.
she said, you know what? It was one of the best things I could have done because a lot of people who then sampled the software version of, I think it was the Voxbox. I don't remember, or maybe it was I don't remember exactly what product it was, but she said that a lot of people who sampled it then went out and bought a hardware unit. So, she got a
Mm.
royalty off of the software, which of course she deserves, and
Yeah.
that's part of the deal
Of
too.
course.
And then, it brought in sales. And I think it's,
Mm.
it's the same concept of people dropping music on the internet for free so
Mm.
that they can get people to come to their shows, in
Mm.
a world like ours now with so much stuff and so many choices and so much coming at you all at once, if you can get people's attention, you can hopefully turn it into something, turn it into a relationship of some sort, whether it's an artist looking for fans or whether it's a manufacturer looking for a sale. And so if you can turn that into something, and, in that case, in Ivana's case, she's turned it into a lot of new relationships, which is fantastic. For a lot of artists, same thing, one good video out there, and all of a sudden, you're going to have a new fan base. There's a great band that a friend of mine, Leo Pizak, is the front of house for this really cool band called Lawrence. And they're led by a brother and sister in New York. Really young, energetic band. They played at the NAMM stage in April. And, a friend of mine sent me a video of theirs. I discovered them online, same thing, I would have not known about them. But having seen something of theirs that caught my attention, it brought me to be more interested in checking out more. That's marketing in this day and age.
Speaking of marketing and sales, according to the CEO at Tunedly, a guy called Chris Earhart, this was what he was trying to express. Between 1975 and 2005, the value of a single song decreased by 60%. So what they did was they took the cost of the album, divided that by the number of songs to get the value per song. So this was previously. Now we have monthly subscriptions for streaming services with access to unlimited songs. The question is, as streaming platforms continue to grow in strength, how can we as artists and the record labels adapt the business models to ensure sustainable revenue streams?
Ooh, yeah, that goes back to what I was saying earlier. I think it is not realistic to look at recording as a sustainable revenue stream by itself anymore. I think that's just, there are certain things that have been changed by the onslaught of technology. And beyond that, by the way we as a society consume music. The original sales model of the record industry, of royalties paid per unit, is based on a paradigm where people bought an album, sat down, listened to the album, and focused centrally on the album. That has been the record buying paradigm since the 1970s, if not earlier. They bought a recording and the recording was central to their attention. In the last 10 or 20 years in particular, music is background now. Hardly anybody really sits and focuses on a song and listens to a song and makes it a central part of their attention span. And so because of that, I think the entire public consumes music differently than they did before. And I don't think that recorded music as in and of itself is that viable. I mean, I could be wrong. I know that there are other avenues for recorded music to make people money, licensing deals and soundtracks and stuff like that. I think those are very viable. Doing music for film, things like that, or for video in general, very viable. But I don't know how viable the traditional path of becoming a quote unquote recording artist is these days, unless, like I say, you're willing to tour, you're willing to go out there and augment that income. I don't really see the streaming revenue structure ever getting to the point where it can sustain anyone except really, really high-end, either legacy artists or artists who have built a huge following You know,
Yeah.
Beyonce makes plenty of money from streaming. You know it. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of older artists make plenty of money from streaming.
Mm.
But I do not think that I don't know how viable it is for younger artists coming in now to
Mm.
think that they can make a sustainable living based
Mm.
on just recording. You better be out there gigging.
Yeah. So for the rest of us, we have noted that there has been a trend for releasing EPs and singles. You know, people tend to download singles or a short for song album, aka EP. Do you think this is the trend that will stay with us, uh, despite technology changes or people's consumption preferences changing? Will this still be the way people will purchase to consume?
Oh yeah, I
Mm.
think it's a singles world now. You know, it's if people discover an artist through a single and
Mm-hmm.
they really like that artist, they're going to voluntarily do a deep dive.
Ah, yeah.
You know, and it's great if you have that material there for them to do. You know, my show that I do every week, Insights and Sound, I usually do a 45-minute to an hour interview with somebody, pretty in depth, just like we're doing now.
Mm.
And I put it up there, and you know, sometimes we get a few thousand views, sometimes we get 20 views. You
Mm.
know, because a lot of people in this day and age are not necessarily inclined to invest that much time in
Mm.
something,
Yeah.
and that's fine. It's you know, it's understandable. But we also release little 30-second snippets with a cool little bit of wisdom or whatever for
Yeah.
people to discover. And if somebody sees that and says, "Ooh, I want to see more," it's there for them.
Mm.
Same principle. You know, you've got to in this short attention span world, you've got to feed people short little bites, get their attention, and then if they are so inclined, you know, maybe they'll do the deeper dive. Maybe they
Mm.
won't. You know,
Mm.
maybe it'll take, you know, there's the theory that you have to touch somebody multiple times before you make an impression. You know,
Oh.
maybe someone will see, you know, will hear a little snippet of 3 or 4 different singles from an artist before they say, "Oh yeah, I remember, you know, I heard something else from that artist, you know, let me go do that deep dive."
Mm.
You know, so I
Mm.
mean, the only thing you can do is just be present and make sure people know you're present.
Mm. So we have a comment from our good friend Gary Mayulo, and his point here is there's a tremendous resurgence in the purchase of vinyl. So does indicate that our music consumers who do listen to that collection, do you have a response to that, Daniel?
You know, I love vinyl. I hate vinyl. Um, you know, I grew up recording on analog tape. You know, I love the sound. I love what vinyl represents because vinyl represents that it represents that culture that I was talking about where
Yeah.
people used to really focus on an artist. We'd read the liner notes. You know, that's how I discovered half of the producers and engineers that I've worked with and that I've been a fan of, you
Yeah.
know, was reading the liner notes. So absolutely, it's vinyl's great. Um, but I think again, it's got a limited audience,
Mm.
and I think even those who collect vinyl, and I, you know, I was a an avid collector of vinyl. I tend to move more often now, so I don't. I move around a lot for my work, and so I do not necessarily regret not having vinyl to lug around anymore. Hard drives are a lot cheaper and a lot lighter, you know.
True.
Um, but I love vinyl, and I love actually getting to sit down and listen to an album. You know, there's a certain subconscious thing that happens, especially if you know an album where song ends and you're waiting for the next song, you know,
Yeah.
which shuffle mode just messes with my head, you know. Um,
Huh, good
but
point.
yeah, but I think, you know, I think for the most part, music is not. going to be consumed that way by most people anymore. Also, we're a mobile society now, and it's kind of. I was recently talking to a friend who got rid of his old 2-inch analog tape machine finally after so many years. I mean, everybody uses Pro Tools anyway or some other digital format, but I said it's like owning an old car, a vintage automobile. I mean, it's wonderful and it's fun and it's there's a uniqueness about it that we absolutely love, but it's also high maintenance. And quite honestly, as much as I love the sound of analog gear and I love playing with a modular and things like that, um, if I'm creating, if I'm in the process of creating, I want as few impediments as possible. And that's what I love about digital is I don't have to think about all that back end stuff anymore. I can just plug something in. I can get the same settings that I had last time. I don't have to wonder and remember and things like that. I can replace things so much easier. There's more of an immediacy to the flow. And so, same thing is true with digital music. I can pull up anything I want on my phone wherever I am.
True.
I can say play this, and it will. And there's it's like I love vinyl too, but if I'm driving in my car, I'm grateful that we have digital technology now too. So I'm
Wow.
far from a Luddite, obviously, I guess.
It's a lot to consider. Viewers, do you have a question before I head to the last two for this live stream with Daniel L Keller, CEO of Get It in Writing, Music and Media Tech Consultants?
Ooh, that was good.
Thank you. You may borrow it.
I think I might.
No? All right. My second last question. With the rise of AI generated music, everyone's talking about AI. You can't leave your home without saying AI. What impact do you anticipate on the creative process and the role of the musician?
That's interesting. I had this conversation with someone the other day. Um, when synthesizers came out, there was this whole fear that they would replace musicians.
Real people.
Yeah. And when drum machines came out, all the drummers were worried about it too.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who it was. I think it was Hal Blaine that was quoted as saying, who do you think's going to play those, who's going to program those drum machines? It's, if you put a synthesizer, well, no, let me rephrase that before I go on. If you put any instrument into the hands of a hack, it's going to sound like a hack.
Yeah.
If you put any instrument into the hands of a brilliant artist, it's going to sound great.
True.
Because they're going to figure out a way to do it.
Think of the musical Saw.
Exactly. And, to me, I think AI is exactly the same thing. You take AI and you give it to the average, how shall I say, not artist, artisan, imitator, someone who may be technically good at something but doesn't have necessarily inspiration. That person is going to use it to create something that sounds very homogenized and boring. And good for them. They can revel in that and everybody can be happy. I think if you put it into the hands of a creative and talented individual, they're going to go, what can I do with this? And they're going to get stuff out of it that you hadn't even ever considered. The same way when we put synthesizers into the hands of really talented artists, what did they do with it?
Yeah.
We never would have expected to hear what Wendy Carlos did. We never would have expected to hear what people like Prince and Todd Rundgren did with multi-tracking themselves. I mean, there are so many cases of people being really, really inspired by this technology because it's just like what I was talking about sitting down in front of a different instrument.
Mm.
You know, for those of us with that kind of creative brain, we're going to take it apart. We're going to do something cool with it. You know, so I'm not the least bit concerned with that aspect of AI. I think there's going to be other aspects of AI that we have to worry about, but that's a completely different conversation.
I understand. Our guest from last week, Jim Hackworth, whom you'll meet later on, but our viewers have met him already online. He had an interesting point that's very much along the same vein as yours, an answer to what about AI getting involved in our work. And he was saying, well, we still need someone with the creative, to come up with the creative designs. You know, someone needs to come up with a purpose before a task can be given to the AI.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
in
And,
summary, that's my summary of what
yeah,
he's
well, and
saying.
no, it's true, and the whole idea of, well, it's artificial intelligence, but it's got to be gleaning its intelligence from real people,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Thank you. Final question. Will you be at the next NAM?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We're just discussing right now. In fact, I've just over the last few days had some lengthy discussions with some of the directors at NAM about this, and we are talking about how we can find the right venues for a number of different panels and whatnot. Uh, I usually try and assemble at least 2 or 3 panels that will fill a room and be of interest to a whole lot of people. We mostly talk to engineers and producers and do panels on technology and creativity and stuff like that. And I did 12 of them at NAM
This year?
23.
Wow.
I may do a few less uh, this next year because I missed out on having more time to just walk around and socialize with people because I was constantly doing interviews.
Yeah.
But it's part of what I do and I love it.
Hmm. Well, yeah, we'll have to have you back next year. But part two of that final question about NAM, what do you hope to discover then if you had more free time to walk around?
You know, I'm a technology nerd, and I always love to discover new things. There's
Mm.
no question about that. And I can't really even predict what I might discover this next year.
Yeah.
Always along the line of instruments and technology, but
Mm.
um, for me, discovering new gear is probably 30% of why I go to NAM. The 70%
Yeah.
is my people.
Yeah. I miss
I'm all
the.
about, yeah, I'm all about networking with other people. I'm all
Yeah.
about this is an industry where everybody I know in this industry become friends.
Yeah.
They're all dear
Likewise.
close friends of mine, and so many people in this industry. I just go to the show to be able to see each other,
Yeah.
and to hang out with people I haven't hung out with in a year. It's like
Yeah.
summer camp for me,
Yeah.
and
I hear you.
it's always fun to see where people are now, what they're working on, who they're
Yeah.
working with. A lot of times, especially in the manufacturing sector, people go
Mm.
from different companies to other companies or start their own.
Yeah.
And, I love that. I love just hanging out with people. And, that's the thing that I think separates the music industry from so many other industries is that it's not just business relationships.
Mm.
We evolve into really, really good friendships, and I can't count the number of friends I consider in this industry. So that's the big reason I go to NAM, and a lot of other gatherings too.
Very good. I'm gonna have to make it a point to try and attend one NAM soon.
Oh yeah, you should. It's fun.
All right, thanks, Daniel, so much. We've totally and utterly enjoyed having you on the live stream, and I hope you had fun too.
Thank you for inviting me, and
Thank
it's been a
you.
pleasure. And I hope I haven't pontificated too much. And
Oh, not at all. No, it's been a joy because I've been curious as well, and I know my viewers have been. We wish you exciting projects ahead, and of course, to stay safe. For our viewers, you've been awesome too. A quick announcement if you weren't here at the start. Immediately after this live stream, we're having a game of Yay or Okay with Daniel and our guest from last week, Jim Hackworth. Please look for the live stream window pop up. You'll see it on my homepage under Yay or Okay.
That was a pop up.
Pop up.
Yep.
And please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, so you'll be alerted to my next music and chat. I believe Daniel's company, Get It in Writing, has a YouTube channel as well. Please look for it and subscribe as well. We all try to support our friends in the music business. Here's your opportunity to do so. All right, so Daniel, you stay put. I'm gonna do the outro, sign off from this, and then invite our next guest in, and we'll begin. Yeah, okay. So Daniel, you
Okay.
stay there.
Okay.
Everybody, I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay. Thanks again. Bye.